to order. Mr. Roberts, you please call roll.
Ms. Barnes?
Present.
Mr. Butler?
Here.
Mr. George?
Present.
Ms. Talley?
Here.
All right. Sorry, we got some hot mics up here. Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I apologize for the late start. We've had some computer issues, I believe, so, and then Kaya, you want to make your announcement?
Absolutely. Is there anybody here that plans to speak tonight? Other than if you're already on.
For public voice,
presentation.
for public
So I know-
voice.
For public voice. I know there's some Eagle Scouts. Fantastic. Okay, that's all I needed. We're good. We will be showing the agenda on the screens. We have some changes to the boardroom for those of you that have not been here before, but we do have some changes. That you'll be able to see the agendas as we're going through on the screens. And then also, if you do happen to leave on your way out and you'd like to sign in, I will have the sign-in sheets outside the door, so as you walk out, you can go ahead and sign in. Thank you.
Nick, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We do not.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve agenda as printed.
Motion.
I'll second.
All right, Ms. Barnes, Mr. Butler, Mr. Roberts, please call roll.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 4-0. For information, Mr. George is, his team won tournament this weekend, so he's coaching soccer again tonight, so that's why he is absent, so we wish him well with that. So presentations, we're gonna get into it. Mitchell Hatch is our first presentation, Eagle Scout Project. If you wanna come up to the podium, please.
Okay, so for my Eagle Scout project, I'm building a concession stand on the visitor side of the high school football field. And I can go into more detail about all the specifics if you want, but the reason that I'm here is since it's being built on school property, I have to get permission from the school board in order to even be able to build it because for legal reasons. And so for just a little bit of general information, the project itself will be about roughly, I don't have completely final quotes yet, but it'll be about $12,000. The electric is going to be ran from the new scoreboard because it has enough electricity to supply the concession stand. It will have just electric, no sewer or anything. And yeah, I'm working on a lot of the paperwork and building permits. And you have any questions? Or?
A concession stand on the visitor side for the Mike Locke Stadium. How big do you think it's going to be?
It's going to be about a 10 by 12. So 12 feet on the long side, 10 feet on the going away from the field. We want to do a little bit bigger because of drainage issues. It has to be that size.
And then for the concession stand, is it gonna be something like your troop is gonna organize? Is it gonna
The performing arts boosters supply it does the staffing for the normal one, so they're going to do it for the visitor one too.
Okay.
Do you believe the project's going to be done for the season, or what's your timeline looking like?
Yeah, it'll be done before the first football game, and we're probably going to be able to pour concrete once the building permit gets approved, which is going to be the longest part because that takes about a month to get approved. So, and I'm just waiting on plans for that. The plans should be done in a week-ish. So.
Do you have a draft of plans?
Yes, I actually do. They're not all the way done, but the layout and the general building is here. So pass that along. There's 2 pages.
Electric?
I can get more than one quote, but the person that I contacted was Abbott Electric. For doing from the scoreboard to the stand and the interior is about $4,200, I'm pretty sure.
Curious, do we have any students from Canal, Winchester that's going to Eastern Career Center maybe that might be able to help with the electric and get some volunteer credit time?
I haven't checked, but I can.
We always appreciate what you and all the boys, you guys always do a good job at Eagle Scout projects coming in and adding on to what we're doing here in the district. So I know it's always exciting coming up here and speaking to the board, so we really appreciate you taking the time to come up here. It's not always easy to speak in front of this big crowd, so the fact that you guys are giving back to the school district and coming up here and taking the time, we really appreciate it. So it's not easy being in your shoes, so I appreciate you speaking to the board, so. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else has any questions.
He's working with Mr. Bridge,
I was
so.
gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
I think unless the board has any objections, if Mr. Bridge is good and we get the permits to move forward with the project, I would think.
We really appreciate it. Everything you guys have done has always added value to the district, so I have no issues with it. I think it seems like you got our seal of approval, so.
Okay, thank
If
you.
you need any help with the electric, I'd be happy to volunteer some time for you.
Okay.
So just let me know. I'll do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You wouldn't need me volunteering, I wouldn't. I know, no. Next presentation is another Eagle Scout project from Ty Gruey, thank you, sorry.
Hello, I'm Ty Gruey. I'm from Troop 103. I'm here today to talk about my Eagle Scout project. My project will be a 12 by 12 memorial patio just outside the auxiliary gym over here. It will have 2 benches with the students named encarved to the bricks. And it is basically a sanctuary where students and families can like release all the reflect on what happened and just somewhere they can go and think about that person. Yeah, I basically came here today also to get approved by the board member. So yeah.
I think the question I have for you is, how much do you think it's gonna cost, and then, like, as far as, like, as far as the process goes, as far as raising the funds and things that you're gonna need?
So in total, it will be around $3,100. It wouldn't really cost much. I know it's fully funded, so I don't have to do any fundraising or any sort of thing like that.
Mr. Butler, I'll answer that question real quick. So this is a project that the district was looking to do for our students and our families. And Mr. Bridge had said, why don't we reach out to one of our Eagle Scouts to see if they could help us with it? And that's what's happened here. So this, the district will be covering the funds for this specific project because it was one that we were going to do anyway, and Ty was able to help out. So that's when he mentions that it's fully funded. It is fully funded by the district.
So just to clarify, if a family were to want to remember their loved one, there's no cost on the family, correct?
That is correct. So, you know, unfortunately, we've looked back over the last 10 years and we have had several students who have passed away while being in school with us. And so we felt that there needed to be somewhere that we could honor them and just take a moment. And so we will purchase the bricks with the student names on them. And then, you know, hopefully we don't have to deal with anything in the future. But if we did have to, that would be covered by the district. You're welcome, thank you. And if there are any families that, you know, our names don't go back far enough and they would like for us to honor their child, absolutely reach out to the district. We'll make that happen.
Questions? Thanks, Ty.
Thank you, Ty, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So the third presentation tonight is the, going to be the Junior OMUN recognition. And we have advisors Ashley Dirth and Brian Ames. Come on up.
Good evening. We want to take a moment and recognize some of our students who are part of our Model UN program. We had about 50 to 60 students that were involved, but I'll let Mr. Ames and Mrs. Dirt talk about Model UN.
Great, thank you. All right, well, first, when we were invited to come here tonight, we were thrilled to be able to recognize these great young people. They did such a fantastic job this year. If you're not familiar with OMUN, it is the Ohio Model United Nations. And it's a statewide simulation that gathers about 800 to 1,200 students from around the state of Ohio. And they descend upon, for lack of a better term, the Hyatt Regency for 3 days in March. And what's unique about this is it's totally student-led. So some of the people that we'll be recognizing tonight next year will actually be the ones leading this program. So we took about 50 students with us this year, and each and every one of them we couldn't be more proud of for the way they comported themselves, the way they represented themselves, and Canal Winchester. So this is more than just the 3 days. It takes about 3 months of preparation. We meet on a weekly basis. They gather into groups, they pick a nation, they research that nation, and they identify a problem facing that nation. Then they develop a UN style resolution, and when we're at the event, they debate this over the course of 3 days, both the merits of their own as well as, what the other nations have been presented as well. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Mrs. Dirth here, but I just wanted to say this program, every student in it has done such a fantastic job, and seeing them identify, use their critical thinking skills, flex their empathy muscles is inspiring every time we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Ames. So OMUN, as he mentioned, is completely student-led. As advisors, we go and we sit in a balcony and we watch the magic happen. The junior OMUN is led by freshmen in high school. Our 8th graders, we were fortunate to have a plethora of them run for office, and we have a lot of people who receive positions. So if you are an OMUN and you either are going to be an officer next year or won a special award at our assembly, please come up here and then I'm going to call you up. So that would be Trevor, everybody, all of you. You guys can just kind of stand up here and then I'll introduce them in no particular order. All right, so our biggest, okay. Sorry. See, they're leaders. They can figure this out. You can go. All right. The first one, this is a big deal, goes to Ira Mfungavo. I'm so sorry. And she will be our OMUN General Assembly Vice President. So she has a very important job next year. So congratulations, Ira. And you want to come over here and shake their hands. Very proud of you. All right. The next one goes to Makara Incorvia. Now, before you clap, she has OMUN Council Vice President, OMUN Outstanding Leader, and Outstanding Resolution. Congratulations. All right, our next one goes to Rain Odom for OMUN Council President. This one is for Missy Welty. She is OMUN Council Vice President as well as Outstanding Resolution. And there's a lot of them because they are very awesome, so bear with me. All right, our next one. This was amazing. This little guy made us so proud as a 6th grader. He was on it. It goes for OMUN Outstanding Delegate to Mr. Evan Bartos. All right, we had Miss Natalie Tyler for OMUN Outstanding Resolution. Another award that we were really proud of was the OMUN World Citizenship Contest winner. This means you are super smart, and this one goes to Trevor Barno. Congratulations. All right. right, another OMUN outstanding resolution goes to Miss Riley Griffin. All right, OMUN Council Vice President and outstanding resolution, Bree Harbor. All right, another big one. Our OMUN Secretary General, as well as OMUN Outstanding Leader and 8th grader, Miss Emma Farley. Then two more came, so we need seven. All right. Another OMUN Council President goes to Miss Monica Mignon. OMUN Outstanding Resolution, Savannah Tillian. OMUN Outstanding Resolution, Peyton Huey. All right, does everyone have a folder? All right, again, we're really proud. Thank you for letting us recognize them.
Can we do a quick group picture?
Absolutely.
You guys get in there.
We're doing the classic.
Oh, yeah. Same leaders. Problem solvers.
Trevor, you're gonna have to go down.
Ready? Thank you so much.
Nice job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was thinking everybody came to stay for like the strategic plan presentation, but. Five-year forecast, that's it.
Show what it's still.
Stop here. So I'll give some time for folks to filter out. Paul, you're with all your friends there.
You guys can go. You guys don't have to stay.
You're fine. Yeah. It does get more exciting from here, folks, so. All right, next presentation is gonna be CWEA. Come on up.
I'm glad the majority of the people left. I'm Bobby Phillips, and I'm here on behalf of CWEA to talk about some of the things that our teachers and students are doing in our buildings. Starting with Indian Trail, our first grade classes celebrated the Storybook Trail and at the end of the year, and they were able to go on a walking field trip to Winchester Park. In Winchester Trail, several of our fourth grade teachers over spring break went to Cincinnati together to visit the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. They took some of the things that they learned and brought it back to their social studies classes to teach their students, and they had a very enjoyable time learning and spending time together. Also at Winchester Trail, congratulations to all the students 3rd through 5th that were in the Aristocats musical. It was very fun and very cute, and there was over 600 people that came to that musical, so that was very exciting for us. In the high school, we just wanted to wish a happy graduation to everyone graduating on May 20th. Congratulations to all of you, and we know you're going to do some great things. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the update.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips, I just wanted to also add to that. I attended that Aristocats musical, and it was just awesome. All the students were excited. We had a lot of community, family support. It was a lot of great positive energy. And I believe there were probably over 700 people. There was definitely an overflow. So there were people standing around. It was just great. It was an awesome evening. So kudos to Mr. Phillips, Mrs. Rice, Mr. Lolithan, staff, everyone. It was just awesome. And I wanted to mention that it was also memorable because it was the first kind of school function that was produced and open to the public since pre-COVID. And it was in the works since 2019, and then it had to be suspended, of course. So it was worth the wait. So it was just great job, you guys.
Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. And the fifth and final presentation is the CW Promise Strategic Plan.
Absolutely. Before we begin, I'm just going to kind of shift things around because we typically do our Knocked Your Socks Off awards during my superintendent's report. However, it's a beautiful night, and I'm sure that our recipient would love to probably head out. And so I just want to take a moment and do that here real quickly. So we do have 2 recipients. Our first is here with us tonight, and that is Cheryl Thomas. Cheryl, if you would just come up here real quick. So as she comes up, I'd like to just make note, Cheryl was nominated by Lindsay Schlarb. Lindsay says that I had the pleasure of riding with Mrs. Thomas on our 2nd grade field trip to Alley Park yesterday. She was very attentive to student behavior on the bus and quick to address issues that might compromise safety. Her expectations were clear, concise, and the students responded well to her. She praised them for their cooperation at railroad crossings, and as we neared the end of our ride, I couldn't help but feel like we were on a guided tour with her pleasant demeanor and departing remarks. I often wonder how bus drivers are able to get their job done while simultaneously operating a gigantic vehicle and monitoring a large number of children. And Mrs. Thomas did it with poise, grace, and a dedication to student safety. So we are very excited to present you with your socks. Congratulations, and we appreciate everything you do. You've always been wonderful. Thank you. And our next recipient was unable to be with us this evening, but it is Miss Mackenzie Mallon. Mackenzie was nominated by Malia Anderson, and Malia says, Mackenzie is a great resource to our staff. Oftentimes, her office door is a revolving door of teachers looking for her guidance. Mackenzie goes out of her way to build relationships with all students and staff. In addition, she provides individualized resources and tools to help students, especially those who need a little more attention. From meetings with students and teachers on a regular basis to testing and meetings with families to discuss next steps in the special education process, Mackenzie has a way to make everyone feel important. She is trustworthy, passionate about serving our students and families, and an amazing coworker who genuinely cares about being there for others. And I will deliver those socks to her tomorrow, but we want to congratulate her. So, Mackenzie, thank you. All right. I think Megan's gonna need the clicker. So as our strategic plan is being passed out, is it my plan? Sorry, we are working through how technology is working in the boardroom, so I'm very excited to be here tonight presenting our strategic plan to all of you. We have been working hard to develop a plan and are excited to present it to you as the CW Promise. So it is more than a plan, it's a promise. As a reminder, I was hired in July as superintendent. And at that time, we also restructured some of our administrative positions. That was in July. We do have a timeline here that will walk us through. And then moving into August, the leadership team had been working on the plan starting back in August when we identified the need for clear goals to guide us as our work moved forward. In September, that's going to be good. In September, the leadership team identified 4 high priority areas that were needed for high level focus. And those areas we are calling our focus areas. There are 4 focus areas that we identified. The first is teaching and learning. And teaching and learning is the heart of what we do here at Canal Winchester Schools. Next, we have safety and wellness. And for teaching and learning to happen, students and staff need to know that they are safe. This is our emphasis on the whole child. Students can't learn if their basic needs like health and wellness are not met. Our third is school culture. And a positive school culture is creating a space where staff and students want to be. And last but certainly not least, we have our operations. Operations is everything that has to happen so that we can teach and learn. Our community shares these values. We put out our Your Schools, Your Voice survey. Your Schools, Your Voice survey. And of these 4 focus areas, all were rated 3 or higher, from a scale of 1 being not important to 4 being very important. So that tells us that our goals, our focus areas, our priorities are aligned to that of what our community believes as well. Back to the timeline then. In November, we did put out that community survey requesting input from our students, our staff, our families, and the community. We had over 3,600 survey responses. We had 2,798 students. Every student was encouraged to complete the survey during the school day, from preschool through their seniors. And the survey was modified for preschool through 5th grade. So obviously the questions that you all saw as community members and families and board members were different for the pre-K students, even to a point that we had pictures for them to kind of choose from. We had 710 families respond to the survey, 321 staff members, and 180 community members. The community would include those who do not identify as students, staff, or parents. In January, the results of the survey were shared with our staff and our community, and the leadership team began analyzing the results. The results that we did find from the survey then became the 17 pillars of our CW promise. So here you'll see again, as we move down here on the left side of the screen, you'll see our focus areas. On the right then you'll see our pillars. So under teaching and learning, we have the pillars of hands-on learning, real-world experiences, student engagement, and teacher quality. For safety and wellness, we have first responder partnerships, mental health services, secure facilities, student expectations and consequences, and training and drills. For school culture, our pillars are communications, diversity and equity, employee morale, and relationships and connections. And for our operations, we have facilities planning for the future, finances, retaining and recruiting staff, and transportation. In March, Our committees for each of the 4 focus areas began to meet and set goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics for each pillar. Moving into April, I then visited the buildings and was able to share the information about the promise with all staff. And then finally to May. On May 5th, we had our final draft of our promise sent out to all staff members so that they could view that. And also, here we are now. It's May, and back when we first began this process, we said May 15th, we would be presenting the plan to the board. May 15th, I had some tell me I was crazy, but here we are now being able to present the plan to you and to our community. We will share the plan, the promise, with the community by the end of the week. This picture here represents what typically you may see in a school district when you think about a strategic plan. One of the things we kept at the forefront as we were developing the plan is that this could not become our plan. It cannot be something that we print off, stick in a binder to just sit on dusty shelves. We had to make sure that it was something that we used, that we followed, and we had to ensure that we made our plan become a reality. And that's how we got to the CW promise. It's more than a plan, it's a promise. Our promise is to our students, our families, our staff, and our community. This document, the words in this document will make that promise, and we would be able then to be held accountable by our students, our families, our staff, and community to follow through with this document. The CW promise is our guide to meet our mission statement, which is to empower all students for success. What's in the promise? I know you are all excited to hear. Well, in the promise, we have what we've already talked about today with our focus areas, our pillars, and then we also have goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics. Together, the goals, objectives, strategies, and tactics create a specific plan to help us accomplish the work that we set forth to do. Leading the work of the strategic plan was definitely a team effort. One of the members of the team I'd like to introduce now is Mr. Craig Lautenschlager, and he is our director of elementary teaching and learning, and he is going to walk you through different parts of the plan. So, Craig.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunt. Good evening, Board of Education. In putting together our Canal Winchester promise, a couple of guiding principles drove the work. We wanted to create a one-year plan, that the responsibility for most of the work would rest with the leadership team, that there would be multiple opportunities for staff input along the way, and that the first year's work would really be foundational, creating structures and processes for success. So that's the framework that we approach this work from. We'll start off with teaching and learning, and we're not going to go over all five of the areas underneath teaching and learning, but I did want to give you just a flavor, an overall sense of how the document lays out. So within teaching and learning, we'll start with hands-on learning. That's our first pillar under teaching and learning. The goal for hands-on learning: maximize hands-on learning. How we will measure that is through student survey results. And some of the strategies that will achieve that is we'll conduct a resource audit and we'll define hands-on learning. Our next pillar, real-world experiences. The goal is to really start to think about those real-world learning for all students. And when we do that, we'll measure it through real-world learning resource for teachers. We'll create that the following year. And some of the strategies will identify students' interests and goals, and we'll establish real-world learning resources. Our fourth pillar, or third pillar, if anyone's counting, student engagement. The goal, engaging student learning in the classroom. And we will measure that through student survey results. And some of the strategies will define student engagement and will discuss engagement with teachers. And our last pillar in this area is teacher quality. The goal here is to use data and best practices to improve teaching. We'll measure that through logging the professional learning hours that we offer, and we'll look at an increase in the performance index score. Some of the strategies we'll use is collaboration and frameworks for reviewing data and making decisions. The second, student engagement, some of the tactics. So now what we're going to do is do a deep dive. Tactics are the most specific, the to-dos. And so each of the 5 pillar areas has these tactics. I'm just going to share with you the student engagement. So as an example, develop guidelines for explicit discussion of student engagement past the teacher observation between administrator and teacher. Define student engagement and expectations for student engagement. These are the to-dos. Hold teacher focus groups to share ideas and observations about student engagement. Every tactic follows the same format. There will be a responsible team, so who is owning this work? The collaborating team, sometimes there'll be additional people that work. There's an asterisk there because not every tactic has a collaborating team. There will be a timeline when we set to start the work and when we set to end the work. There will also be a budget, and again, that has an asterisk because not every tactic has a monetary consideration attached to it, but every tactic will have some form of an evaluation. That's the first focus area. Focus area 2, safety and wellness. Our first pillar under that is first responder partnerships. The goal to build relationships with first responder agencies. We'll measure that through family survey results, and some of the strategies will raise awareness of the SRO program, and we'll actually define the SRO role. Our second pillar, mental health services. The goal of mental health is sustainable school-based services. We'll measure that through Mental Health Resource Hub, the creation of a mental health resource hub. And some of the strategies will be communication and best practices for school-based mental health services. Our third pillar will be secure facilities. The goal here will be, we'll look for best practices for safe facilities. We'll measure that through a plan for safety enhancements at each of the buildings, and strategies, safety committee, short and long-term facility plans, and implement best practices. Student expectations and consequences. The goal for this pillar, culture of shared responsibility for safety. We'll measure that through student survey results. And some of the strategies will be a focus on consistent language, student understanding of safety responsibilities. And the last area, training and drills. The goal here is to empower students and staff through drills and training. We'll measure that through, again, student survey results. And some of the strategies will be a common language and conduct required drills and trainings and overall communication. Again, a deep dive of the tactics of secure facilities. What are the to-dos in this area? They include develop a district-wide safety committee, establish clear, simple norms around safety and security for all staff members, incorporate safety and security improvements into the capital spending plan, and identify recommended best safety practices for school facilities. Also working on this plan, the CW Promise, was our communication director, Megan Anthony, and she's going to take over the next pillar area.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Craig. If you could go to school culture. And our first pillar there is communications. Our goal is equitable and accessible communication. Our objectives are the launch of a new website this summer and family survey results. And our strategies are accessible platforms, refining our internal communications processes, and creating clear processes and expectations for communication. Up next, we have diversity and equity. Our goal there is belonging and dignity for each and every student. Our objectives are going to be our student survey results and completing training with our staff in this area. And our strategies are celebrating diversity and training our staff. Next up, we have employee morale. Our goal there is appealing internal culture for current and potential employees, and we're going to measure our success in this area through staff survey results. And some of our strategies include formal and informal recognition, connections with staff, and addressing substitute shortages. And our last pillar in this area is relationships and connections. Our goal here is to have a welcoming, safe, and supportive culture. We're going to measure this through family survey results. And our strategies include building our external partnerships, planning inclusive events, and reviewing our family and community involvement post-pandemic. I'm going to, just like Craig did, I'm going to walk through the tactics of one area, employee morale. First, we have make a one-to-one connection with every staff member by winter break. This is something that the district office leadership team will be doing with every staff member of the district. Expanding our formal opportunities to recognize staff. Reviewing and updating our end-of-year and service awards. Creating a calendar of employee recognition dates. Creating a committee to evaluate substitute shortages and staff attendance. And developing an informal feedback and recognition plan. And last but not least, we're at operations. Our first pillar here is facilities planning for the future. Our goal is safe and welcoming facilities. We're going to measure our success here through the creation of a facilities plan. And our strategies include developing a maintenance schedule and developing a schedule for replacing the major equipment that we use to keep our buildings and grounds up to date. Under finances, our goal is responsible management of taxpayers' investment in education. Our objective is to have an audit compliance with no findings, which is something Mr. Roberts has done repeatedly during his time here. And then our strategies are creating a budgeting process. It's okay. I know. I mentioned his name. So it's through creating a budgeting process for our buildings and departments, a fiscal communications plan, and doing an audit of our staffing levels. Next, we have staff retention and recruitment, and our goal is to have a diverse, dedicated, and caring staff. We're going to measure this success through our staff survey results, and our strategies include reviewing our hiring practices, our onboarding process for new staff, and developing a scheduling committee to look at innovative and any option we can think of pretty much for the future. And finally, we have transportation. Our goal is safe, reliable transportation. We're going to measure our success in this area through the production of a twice annual report about our transportation department and its work. And our strategies include staff recruitment, improved communication both internally and externally with transportation, and clear bus safety and expectation for students. Now we're going to go into the tactics of transportation. We have create a quarterly schedule for recruitment and training, review our bonus and incentive program to evaluate its effect on recruitment, develop opportunities for drivers to be part of each campus beyond their current role, research and develop a mentoring program for newly hired drivers, and create opportunities for building administration and bus drivers to meet. And now I'm going to pass it back to Mrs. Hunt.
As mentioned, just as you went through it, the exciting thing, Nick, appreciate you on the finance. We talked about you and it's exciting, but the exciting thing for me is that it is very clear, very concise on the work that we're going to do. There's no questions asked about where we plan to spend our time and our resources, and it definitely allows us to work through by those being very specific on the tasks, our to-do list or our tactics. So next up, we have accountability. We believe that the best promises are the promises that are kept, and that's what we intend to do. We know that we needed a strong accountability plan. Our accountability plan will allow us to establish transparency with the Board of Education, with the staff, the students, the families, and with our community. So how we will do that, we will have monthly board meeting updates. I plan to have part of my superintendent's report reflect the work that we're currently doing and let you know where we're at on the CW Promise. We also are going to offer quarterly virtual updates. This would be for our staff to start. I plan to meet virtually with all of our staff, optional if they'd like to come, so we can talk through the work that we are doing, and that way we can get feedback and any questions that we may have. And then website dashboard. We will have a dashboard on the website showing progress of where we're at. Once our new website will go live in July, so that will be something that will be a part of that website launch. The future of the promise. So each spring we will revisit the promise. We'll make updates as needed, and we will plan to present that to the board at a meeting in the spring to let you know of any updates where we are and where we're going. And also then we will continue to have our Your Voice, Your School survey. I feel like I always get that mixed up. In order to provide us with feedback, there are a lot of measurables within the plan from that survey. So that is something that we will continue to do, and we are hopeful that we'll continue to get more and more feedback from our community, our students, our families, and our staff as we continue to ask the questions. And last but certainly not least are our next steps. We will share the CW Promise with the community. Like I mentioned earlier, that will happen by the end of this week. We will begin to really work and dive into the plan at our summer administrative retreat meeting. That happens early June. And we will also create a master timeline for the plan. So if you noticed in the plan, there are a lot of timelines. So we will build that master plan so that we'll be able to look at it and see when the work needs to be done and create timelines for ourselves. What questions do you all have?
Ms. Hunt, how are you planning on sharing this? I know you're going to post it, but how are the ways we're going to share this with the community?
Well, our communications coordinator, who is over here, will come to the podium to let you know.
So we will post it on our website probably tomorrow morning. We'll send an email to our staff, students, and families, letting them know that it's available and providing the link. We'll also post it to social media, and then we have a newsletter coming up in early to mid-June. Okay. Sorry, a print mailed newsletter.
We have also already, like we mentioned, shared with the staff the plan. And we understand we set it out May 5th. May is a little bit crazy, you noticed, just from the students who were unable to make the Student of the Quarter celebration, just as a busy time for all, including our teachers and our staff. And so we did provide them with a link to be able to provide us feedback through a Google form. And we will always be looking at that. Our goal is that as we get questions or comments coming to us, that we would create an FAQ, frequently asked questions, that we could then answer those questions, and we would again post that out for all to see. We feel like if one person has a question, somebody else has that same question. Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I missed it, but how will we get it to the part of the everyday functioning of the school?
That would be through the printed newsletter.
Mailed newsletter goes to every home in the district.
Thank you.
Well, I'm personally excited about the CW Promise. It is definitely an accountability document. It's very intentional. It's measurable. I understand that it's like a living document, so it's going to constantly be adjusted as you go along. And I'm sure as you work through the goals, new goals may arise. And specifically, I mean, I understand as well that it's a document that incorporates feedback and input from all working parts. And with that, Could you elaborate a little bit more on the roles that the students and the teachers will play in implementing the CW promise?
Yes. So as we mentioned, I believe Craig discussed, just this year with our short timeline, really, if you hear of a district starting something with a survey in November and having a plan in place by May, it's kind of unheard of. However, I'm super proud of the work that we did do. We made meaningful work out of it, and the tasks that we have in place are a lot of structures. What we envision in the plan, you'll see a lot of times where there are committees that we put together, and at that point, we would bring staff, students, family, depending on the nature of the committee and what it is that we're looking at, bring them together to really provide their feedback and their voice, and to make decisions moving forward. That's how I envision that we would get voice, as well as then the annual survey that we would put out to get that voice as well. And then to tie in again with my virtual updates, we're gonna try that. We had some discussion on whether or not we would move that to the community. I think maybe that's something we can discuss after next year, see how it goes, see if it is productive, and maybe that's something that we can also do, whether it's virtual or in person. We can invite the community in to provide their feedback as well. But you're 100% correct in that this plan is a working document and will continue to change. I shared with the leadership team at a meeting, and I'm trying to think when this was, sometime maybe February, where we might have hit a little bit of a roadblock, and I said, listen, we have to do this. If we don't do this, we aren't moving forward, and honestly, then maybe I'm not the right person to lead the district, because I want to continue to I want to go from good to great. I want to continue to grow and get better. And I think that's what this plan allows us to do. And then as I went out to each building, I said the same words. I'm like, this will be here as long as I am the superintendent. And we will continue to adapt and it will continue to grow. But this is not something that will be a one-year thing or something else that's done that then becomes in the binder on a shelf. And through the work and working through it and delivering the information to staff and the feedback that we did get, I feel there's excitement around it. I think there's also nerves because it is something that we haven't had in place and it could be very intimidating, but it's when you look at it and you see it, when you break it down into such a small task, it makes it manageable. So thank you.
Yeah, I also wanted to add, since it's foundational at this point, it will take some time in order for us to see really or to be able to measure the success of it. And just pulling that together in that I'm looking forward to monitoring year after year, like what our state performance report card will show. Because I think it all ties in together and would help move us towards success, in all of those respective pillars. So.
I agree. And the accountability piece is there, as well as just being extremely intentional about the work that we do and having those conversations with our administration and our staff to help move us in that direction. So I would agree with you. You will notice also in the plan, and that's a great point that you make, a lot of this we won't be able to measure until the fall of '24. So we're looking at even a full another school year because we're just starting to implement it this next year. And that's just, it seems to take time, but I also look back to last year, June and July, when did that happen? We're now in May. So time's gonna fly, so our intentionality in our work is gonna help us to move and be, I've said the word intentional, but it really does. It helps us to be intentional to make those progress towards our goals.
I've already heard some feedback from staff, and they're very appreciative of the work that's gone into this, and they look forward to seeing what's coming out of it. And so it's the folks I've spoken to have very positive feedback and excitement to see what's next and where it's going. So I appreciate the team putting everything together for us and living this out. So thank you.
Yeah, and it could not be done without the team our leadership team. There were some times where we had 7 a.m. meetings and they were there for each and every one of them, or they participated when they could, and it just would not have happened without that commitment from our entire leadership team. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we don't have any public voice at the moment, I don't believe, so
Can
we'll.
we check real quick that we
Sure.
didn't miss anybody?
Oh,
Did
please.
anybody want to speak? Just want to make sure I know it was a little crazy coming in and a little busy and not having fun. Okay, thank you.
All right, we're gonna jump into executive reports. Mr. Roberts and his treasury report is up next first.
Good evening. Tonight, I've got a forecast update for the board. I want to cover the current fiscal year. Just want to go over some changes. So the current fiscal year revenues are projecting to be $1.6 million better than what we forecasted in November. Expenditures are $906,000 more than what we projected in November for an overall cash positive change of $735,000. Here's some highlighted areas of some of the significant changes with revenue. We mostly missed the mark on other revenue, which is interest earnings. Last few years, we've collected about $405,000 to $425,000. This year, we're going to collect close to $1 million. We would have never been able to project the interest rates to be over 5 and stay at 5 for the duration that we've seen it. So it's been a nice welcome surprise to have that influx of income revenue to our forecast. The main changes in expenditures were purchase services, up $682,000 on what we projected in November, mainly due to costs to do with private tuition for special education students and the transportation to do with the special education students. Utilities are up a little bit more than we expected, but it's mainly due to the private tuition. Everything else, I mean, you can see personnel and benefits fairly close. Some of the big projections for income tax and personal property tax and real estate tax were really close compared to what we're trying to do in valuation increases. We did see about a $60 million increase to our valuation due to the Fairfield County update. We do have the Franklin County update coming up. We're already in that calendar year for the tax year. Franklin County's in the process of doing the reappraisal right now. So you guys will probably, if you live in Franklin County, you'll start seeing letters if you haven't already, and different documentation for that. We are forecasting about a 40% increase to the valuations in Franklin County. The forecast does show a significant jump coming up in '24 due to that reappraisal from 16.8 to 17.7. You can see just with the update, we had income or real estate tax increase of about $300,000. This would be one of our biggest increases probably in school district history. And I just want to point that the appraisal of values isn't up to the school district. The county does that based on the market, based on all the conditions that are happening in central Ohio and the areas that you live. So one residential area may get a bigger increase than another residential area just based on sales of homes and different things happening in that particular area. But the county auditor did tell us to expect 35 to 40% increases for most of Franklin County. So in the 5-year forecast, there's a bunch of changes since November, but the net difference is $446,000. So if you look at the November forecast that we filed, you're going to see significant changes to purchase services and supplies, and some revenue lines, but the overall cash balance right here in the corner of $40.9 million was about $40.5 million in the November forecast. So a lot of inner workings, but not that much of an impact on the bottom line from November to May. There is one thing outstanding. I do want to just put it on record that the state budget, the biennium budget, is currently sitting in the Senate. The governor introduced proposal for what he thought the state budget should look like for public education. The House adopted a different version with some changes, and now it sits with the Senate. If the changes proposed by the House do go through, our forecast will change significantly for the better due to some of the changes in the state budget. I just want to put that on record, that that is a possibility. I did not put that in the forecast because I have no idea what the House is going to do. I'm hearing that, or the Senate, I'm hearing that they don't plan to make any changes to what was introduced by the House, but they have to adopt that by July 1, so we'll know, hopefully, here in about a month on what they adopt for the new biennium budget, and that would be in place for the next 2 years. And that takes care of these two lines, 1.035 and 1.04. So it's a significant portion of our budget that we're relying on to come through in the state budget. So be waiting eagerly in the next 30 to 45 days to see what they decide, to see what they pass for July 1.
Hey, Nick, real quick, the 17.7 number in 2024
Yes.
projection, I would just, the 2025, 26, 27 continues to go down a little bit. Are we still not collecting that same proposed value of the home as real estate taxes, or are we collecting less houses, or why is that going down?
We have the emergency levy renewal in 2024, so we would be impacted in 25, 26, and 27, because in the forecast, we can't assume that it will pass. So that moves down into this area right here. You can see over a 3-year period, that real estate emergency levy is worth $16.8 million to the district. So if we did not pass that, we would be looking at about $23.7 million and not the $40.9. And you can see that the balance would deteriorate pretty quickly because we start losing 1.2, 6.6, 7.3. The levy generates about 6.3 with substitute, so it ends up being about 6.5. So you can see this, we do a substitute renewal, so it picks up additional new construction values. So it's very important that we pass that, or you'll see the 23.7 on the next, when we update the forecast in November, probably be down in the 16, 17 million range. So that will be on the ballot in November of this year. We'll be passing some resolutions starting next month, and then we'll pass another one in July to get on the ballot for November.
November 2024, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
2023.
Or 2023, yeah, it'll be this year.
You tried to do
Yes,
2023?
yeah.
Okay, all right, that's why I just wanted to make sure I thought you said that.
Maybe I'm asking all these questions, but what will be our explanation to our taxpayers asking for a levy if we're seeing all of the increases in other taxes with real estate taxes, and we see the numbers going up unexpectedly with the interest rates, et cetera? Well, how will we justify the need for the levy?
With this blue line right here, where we're losing 1.2, 6.6, 7.3, and then I would imagine that would probably be about 8.5 in the 28th fiscal year. So we would be down to about 15 million. Without the levy, it would just continue to be, we'd have, probably by 2029, we would have $0 as a cash balance without the emergency renewal. With it, it allows us to maintain, be proactive, stay ahead of the game, because once you get your balances so low, then you're chasing the money at that point. So the 6.3 is no longer 6.3. So you're always chasing yourself, where I feel like the district's done a nice job of doing different things with cash balance. We added 45,000 square feet to the high school. We're adding 30,000 square foot to the Indian Trail starting in July to allow full-day kindergarten. That allows for expansion in K-5. We've upgraded athletic facilities, turf, track, tennis courts, athletic field house, locker rooms. So it allows us to do some of those things and be proactive when things need to be done. So I think the cash balance as it tapers down is very important that is renewed.
When you're saying proactive, I mean, we're actually funding those projects ourselves without having to go out and ask bond or new monies of residents.
Correct.
Where most districts, I would expect, if they want to do an add-on or all-day kindergarten wing like we're doing, they're going to put a bond levy out and they've got to go find that money or
Correct.
or
Yes,
go after
they'd-
that money.
They would do a bond levy for 20, 30, 37 years. So they would, and you're talking about interest on top of the bond of borrowing. So we're saving a significant amount of money by having the cash to be able to do key projects. We're able to maintain bus fleet. As you remember, we had to do bus bonds in 2014, which cost us a lot of money because our buses were not being updated the way they should have been. We financed the operations center. So we've saved a lot of money by having the cash on hand to be able to pay some of these things off. And outside of our bond debt, we're pretty much debt-free at this point, because we've paid off the operations center, we've paid off the bus bonds, we've paid off the House Bill 264 loan to save interest and to take advantage of our cash on hand. So it puts us in positions to be able to do things like that.
And then Mr. Roberts, I know you said November 2023. Are we looking at a 5-year, a 7-year? What right now are we thinking as far as going out for the renewal?
It's currently a 5-year, and we're going to keep it at a 5-year.
Okay. All right. And then there is some savings for going for renewal as opposed to new money. I think we mentioned that we do save some money. Is it 12 or 13%? I can't quite remember.
About 12.5%
Okay.
of the homestead and rollback that is on existing levies.
And Mr. Roberts, just going back to the state budget that's pending in the Senate, if approved, does that mean that the formula will still be fully funded, or is it still like a phase-in?
It's a phase-in. Currently, it's at 33.3%. It's in the proposal from the governor and the House to go to 50% and 66%. And then they've got it going to 83 and then 100, but that won't be in this biennium budget unless they write it specifically into the bill. Last time they would only write the 16 and 33. They wouldn't commit to a full phase-in. We're hoping that they commit to that this time and not just the biennium years of 50 and 66. So we're hoping they commit to the full phase-in of the formula. The governor has made it clear that he's not backing off of the phase-in, so I think that's a big piece of the formula. The other huge piece for us is right now they're operating on base costs of 2018, and we're in fiscal 23, so the base costs are already 5 years old. The House introduced to update those to the base costs of 2022, and that's where we would see a significant increase, because base costs and the cost of operated district has obviously went up over the last 5 years. Because the key inputs are real estate tax and income tax, and they're using current data for those. So as those things are current and they're using old base data, most districts are going to be off of a formula and back onto a guarantee if they don't update the base costs.
Okay.
So the House introduced that, and like I said, the Senate's not expected to remove that. One, they want the voucher program to go through, so I think they're doing some negotiating with what happens with the voucher program and what happens in the public formula.
Thank you.
Well, but Vanjie, you said you thought it was an obvious question. It really, to our stakeholders out there, it could be an obvious question, but as we go through it and we see the decreases coming up, I mean, that's the information that we need to continue to talk about and to let folks know what,
That's why I asked
what the
it, 'cause-
inside, what the
Because I
inside numbers
figured
are.
those who are listening online may not
Right.
have the obvious answer,
Yeah.
but I wanted to let him
No,
give
it's
that answer
fantastic.
to them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Any other questions on the update? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to superintendent's report. You got anything left, Kaya?
I do.
All right,
It's
what do
been
you
one of
have?
one of those nights. Mr. Roberts, do you mind pulling up the PowerPoint version of the, oh, it's not there. Okay. It was attached earlier.
We can certainly come back to you.
Was it put into the administrative piece?
It was maybe, yes. Is it easier if I send you an email of it?
Nope,
Sorry.
'cause I can't.
Oh, you can't. Sorry, we're learning the new technology. I apologize. Well, as he's pulling it up, there's two documents in there. There's one that's a PDF and another one that is the PowerPoint. PowerPoint would probably be the easiest. We just want to give an update of where we are with the Indian Trail addition as well as the middle school plans that we have. So,
Which one you want first?
the PowerPoint one, they're both the same. So the second one, please. Thank you. We just put together a quick presentation to review where we're at and where we're going, and a little bit of an update. We did have a slight change in our plans. So to start, as everyone hopefully knows by now, that we are having an addition added to Indian Trail. That addition will allow us to have full-day kindergarten, and will also allow for us then to move preschool over from Winchester Trail to Indian Trail, which will then keep our preschool, kindergarten, first and second graders in one building, and then third through fifth would be at Winchester Trail. The advantage there is with them moving over with the addition, it will build space as well, because as we've talked about in earlier months, the growth that we are gonna see in the 25 years, so the 24-25 school year kindergarten growth rates are pretty high. And then in 2 years, the next 2 years, they continue to grow to even larger. So this will allow us to grow with the students as they come in at kindergarten, grow through first and second grade as they move to Winchester Trail, provide the space so that we can grow with those students. And then it buys time for us to look at what we do need at the middle school. So go ahead and click the next. This is our Canal Winchester Middle School. So one of the exciting pieces of the plan is to build a covered foyer, covered entry.
Really nice
And this
awning.
is a drawing here of what they have designed. So as you see, if you go up to the middle school now, it is somewhat of a boring building when you look at the front. And this will allow us to really build the architecture of that front of the building, let people know where they are if they are at the front of the building, and it also allows for space if it is raining or if we're in the weather for visitors or students to remain out of the weather. The concrete bottoms in this picture will also allow, they're right at the height for seating almost, so it'll also provide an area for those who are outside to sit. Here's a front view of the same thing. So just another view. We're also excited about, you'll start to see here, that's okay, we'll start to see here in the next, hopefully in the upcoming months over summer, a little bit of branding that's going to be happening across the district. We are investing in some wraps, so you'll see that wrap happening at all of the buildings, and that will also be on the front there at the middle school. When we first came to you a couple months ago, we had talked about expanding the cafeteria at the middle school. New to the construction world, really being able to dive in and learn, we learned some things after moving forward with the project. So once you get in with the architects, they give you their idea of what it's gonna look like, and then you start to dig in to find out what it can really look like. And from many different reasons, the cost of the project at the middle school continued to rise. So if you recall, we were going to expand, if you just go ahead and go to the next slide here, we were looking to expand so that we could allow a class to go through the cafeteria at one time for a lunch period, which would allow our students at the middle school not to have lunch at an early hour, like in the 9s. I think now they're having lunch at 9:10, 9:15, somewhere in that ballpark. So this would be able to push that back to more reasonable times and us to get through in 3 lunch periods. And in order to do that, we would need more tables. We have switched, no matter what we do, we've switched to the rectangular tables, which allows us to have more tables in an area. And then we were gonna expand the middle school cafeteria on 2 sides. It's supposed to be a really easy expansion. What we found is once they started digging in, that in order for us to do that, we were going to have to keep many parts of the wall in place. So as we would expand, the best way to show it is if you were looking here at these windows, every area where there's a window, that concrete block would remain. And so the visual that you would get from one space to the other would be it wouldn't be good. Also, you would not be able to see through to see the students. It would almost feel like two separate spaces. So once we saw that and the cost continued to increase because of that, we decided that that plan was not one that we wanted to move forward with. We would be dumping in a whole lot of money and not getting the output that we would need, especially knowing that we have some major growth coming over the next few years once this kindergarten class gets to the 6th grade, and we may need to do some things different at that time. So we did step away from that. At that point, we started to look at what we could do to still meet our needs. And so what we have decided is that we will use the stage space for seating. So with no changes at all, we are able to add an additional 12 tables on the stage area, which would allow our seating to reach a maximum number of 444. So no issues there. The curtain that you're seeing would open. And this here is the space that you would see. So you see the pink purple is the existing cafeteria. Real faint behind, you see the circular tables where they were. You see the rectangular tables over top. So you'd see how that could lay out. And as Nick's pointing around, you see where the tables would be added on the stage. So this would still give us what we need for a short term, allow us to really buy time to see those students coming in at the kindergarten level. Are they really gonna come? Which we're pretty sure they are, birth rates are there. And you know, what the difference is for us on offering full day kindergarten, what increase we'll see from the kindergarten to 1st grade level, which right now we're going off of past trends when we had half day kindergarten to then a full day 1st grade, going from a full day to a full day. We're not sure how that will impact us. But this allows us to meet the need. We've also looked at, and we have our architect looking at this area here in the middle between the pink and the purple. It's currently steps. We could remove those and add in one more row of tables, which at 12 kids per table, multiply that by 5, and you'd get an additional 60 kids. Again, as Mr. Roberts and I talked, you know, if we have a need to have 400 students in the cafeteria at any given time at the middle school, we're gonna need to look at other plans other than just adding in tables at the middle school. We're gonna have to look then at increasing classroom space, maybe talking in another intermediate building. And so we just feel like our money is better spent not going forward with the plan and then, you know, measuring where we're at, because we're still able to get done by using the stage space for lunches. Moving on then, just to reflect back on the Indian Trail Edition, there's really no changes here. I just want to remind everyone of what that will look like. You see the overlay of that orange space there is where the new wing will come out. That work is scheduled to begin breaking ground in July of this summer. We will add an additional 18 classrooms for additional kindergarten classrooms, as well as then 1st and 2nd grade classrooms as those kindergarten students grow. And then preschool being moved over to Indian Trail as well. And the other thing that has been a hot topic with us is looking at the playground area. You'll notice that the new wing does take away quite a bit of space on the playground area. We will move that playground area back to the back. And we'll take the current equipment that's there, take it and relocate it back to the back. So you'll see relocated swings, relocated playground equipment, so that all students will now go out to that area to play. We're also adding an asphalt play area that currently is grass. We do have some water issues in that area, so this actually helps us with that, and we'll cover that space so there's more asphalt area for play. And the idea would be then, once the classroom wing is completed, next summer we would come in and then rebuild or create a new kindergarten playground area in the area here where the Nick's circling. So we would be able to create a full new kindergarten play area that makes more sense of the location. Up top, where the arrow is now going, that one of these two areas will be the new preschool playground area. That equipment will be moved over from Indian Trail to Winchester. From Winchester Trail to Indian Trail once we hit next summer of 24-25, because the kids at Winchester Trail will still be using that equipment next year. So we just wanted to give an update because we did make the change again. The cost just didn't make sense. The design didn't make sense as we got into it. And so we still can meet where we're at. And I think it's just a much smarter plan moving forward, especially with the fact of we may need to have growth. And if we ever do get to the point where we either need another intermediate building, or if we end up building onto the current middle school, a new cafeteria, gym space would be included in that anyway, due to the numbers of students. Any questions on the building additions? All right, and the last thing that I'm going to speak on until consent agenda and then policy will be, I would like to just take a moment and congratulate the seniors, as this is their last week of school. Graduation will be held this Saturday at 6 p.m. at World Harvest. Later in the agenda, we will be approving the list of seniors for graduation. I am proud of the class of 2023. They have been through so much in their 4 years of high school, starting with their freshman year being shut down a couple months early due to COVID. Their sophomore year was spent either in a hybrid learning model where they would come to school 2 days a week and learn from home the other 3, or they were fully remote. Last year, they were able to return to school and experience their first normal year of high school, similar to what we all probably went through. Now they're able to experience their senior year and attend graduation. I am honored to serve as their superintendent and wish them all the luck as they navigate their future. So, again, we'll all be there on Saturday, and I'd just like to take that final moment and wish them all the best, and just take a moment to recognize them and their efforts as they've went through these 4 years and navigated a world that I don't know, if we would have ever been able to predict it when it happened, but they're stronger because of it. That is all I have for now.
Wonderful, thank you. Any additional questions for Kaya? All righty. We're gonna get into the district reports, and I'm gonna leave it open to see if any board member has any questions that they'd like to bring up about district reports, any building reports, or team reports. All right. From there, we're gonna move into the consent agenda, and I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Talley and Ms. Barnes. And we will start off with the minutes. So, Ms. Hunt?
Thank you. Then we'll start number 2 is the minutes from the April 17th regular meeting. Number 3 is our donations. We're asking you to accept 2 donations. One is from First Financial Bank to the Hope Squad in the amount of $250. The other is from the CW Athletic Boosters to Canal Winchester Local School District in the amount of $59,937.33. And I'm going to let Nick just quickly overview that amount of money and what we're looking at doing with that.
Yeah, Mr. Owens was sitting up here the whole time. Once we get to this
There
party,
he is.
it takes off on us. Just want to thank the boosters. This is one of their many accounts that they have. They had this set up through fundraising to assist the district with facilities. Mr. Owens had stepped down from being the treasurer, and the boosters and Mr. Owens felt that they wanted to make that donation to the school district to be able to handle the facilities money. So I have a fund set up that's for booster facilities, so we will take that money, hold on to it, and if anything comes to the district outside of what we was normally going to do, we'll look to use this money to enhance our athletic facilities, just like the boosters intended for that to be. So thanks, Mr. Owens, for all the stuff that you've done for the district. He spends a lot of time on our turf. He spends a lot of time in the district, and I know he's kept the boosters in track from financial reporting and all those good things. So hopefully that continues from the boosters, and we see the fundraising and all those things happen on their side. So thank you.
Paul, how many years were you treasurer for the booster program? Greatly appreciate your time and effort. Thank you. I don't know if you're still riding the tractor out there for the turf. All right, we appreciate. Good, good.
He was the key player that got turf into the district, led that, paid that off. The boosters completely paid off the turf, on the first go-around, 12 years ago. We were able to, maintain and keep the new turf and track, just this past summer, so.
An unsung quiet hero back there. Thank you, Paul, for your services. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Moving on to number 4, we do have a resignation under administrative personnel of Greg Lahr, assistant principal at the high school, and that will be effective July 31st of 2023. Mr. Lahr will be moving on to become the principal of Circleville High School, and we just want to thank him for his years of service and wish him the best of luck in his new position. Moving on to number 5, under certified personnel, we do have several resignations. We do have 2 requests for leave of absence. And then we have our teacher recommendations, which is several that you can see there. Ms. Toledo has been busy over the last month. Moving on to 23-24 is our contract recommendations. In May of each year, you'll know that we then bring back to you those contract recommendations that we would have. So anybody that is in the final year of their contract, we then make the recommendation on where they will be. Ohio Revised Code, basically your contract sequence is you come in at a 1 year followed by a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. And after you've been here for so many years, you can apply for continuing contract. So you'll notice that we go through the 1 years, the 2 years, the 3 years, and then the 5 years. Then moving on to stipends, we do have a stipend for Carrie Young for this school year. She did move into the department grade level chair after an illness, and so she has served in that position. The position just had not been approved yet, so we're asking to approve that. We do also have extended days that we're requesting for middle school counselor to finish out for this school year. And then we move into our extended days for the 23-24 school year to finish that section up. Moving on to number 6, for classified personnel, we do have several contract rescissions, and we are rescinding them to change the rate of hourly pay, so they are being rescinded. They were approved at $10 an hour, and we are making that change to go back to a $12 an hour rate. Again, followed by resignations, retirements. I believe that 3 of those are resignations, and then we also have a resignation for the purpose of retirement from Rodney Abbott, bus driver, which is effective August 1st, 2023. And again, we'd like to just take the moment and wish him luck and thank him for his years of service in the district. Moving on then to leave of absences for our classified staff, and then on to our classified recommendations. We do have 2 bus drivers, a paraprofessional, and a computer technician. Just to make note, Conrad Roush has been working in the district for, I believe, the last 6 or 7 years. He has been paid through the ESC, and so we are now bringing him on to pay him here through Canal Winchester. So that's not a new position, that's a restructure of the pay. And then moving on, we have our approval of our mental health interns. Again, you'll see the $12 an hour rate as we move forward. And those are our mental health interns for the 23-24 school year. We're thankful for those, that relationship and the opportunity to allow them to serve in our district. We have our substitute classified recommendations. We have 2 sub-custodians. And then again, moving on to our 23-24 contract recommendations for our classified staff. Again, very similar to what you see under the certified staff. However, for our classified, it's a 1 year followed by 3 different 2 years. So you'd go 1 year, 2 year, 2 year, 2 year, and then they would be up for continuing. 7 is our supplemental personnel. We are approving Mr. Luke Furness for this school year as the high school musical instrumental music director. And that is, again, for this school year. And then also for next school year, we're asking you to approve Jonathan Hedgepath as the varsity basketball coach for next school year. Moving on to number 8, we do have the classified salary schedule. We do have some changes on the salary schedule. And as we look each year, we bring these to you, we clean them up a little bit, make sure that they reflect, where we're at, what we want to do with them. And on this one, we did remove the transportation coordinator position. If you recall, we took that position and moved it to administrative before last summer. We made that move. We're removing the communications coordinator from the classified schedule. And again, that position will move to the administrative salary schedule. And then we're also removing EMIS. When we hired EMIS this year, we actually have it becoming a joint position where it is with the administrative assistant to the treasurer / EMIS. So those positions would no longer exist on the classified schedule. These changes, there's no dollar changes that would have been made to the salary schedule. Moving on to number 9, we have the administrator's salary schedule. As I mentioned during the strategic plan presentation, and also we've talked throughout the last year, when I was named superintendent, we made some changes early on with the structure of the administrative team. And then after this school year, we've talked as our team on some changes that we believe need to be made to make us become more supportive of the buildings, and just the need is in different places. So there are several changes on the administrator's salary schedule. We have some job title changes that we made just to clean up the language. We did take the operations director position, and we are restructuring that to become the director of student services. Small changes of titles that I don't think we need to really go through are like director of, the curriculum directors are all becoming director of teaching and learning. Again, just a title change there. I just want to make sure I'm clearing this up. We also made some changes to the positions of director of athletics, director of facilities, director of technology, and director of transportation. Prior, I guess this school year and before, they had different names, whether they were supervisors or coordinators, and then they were housed in column 4. After some discussion with us taking the director of operations position, and we're eliminating that, the roles of the director of facilities, technology, and transportation are going to take on more within their role. They're not going to have the director of operations to report to. And so we felt those positions needed to be shifted over a column, as well as then a title change for them. So we would make them the director of their position versus technology, whether it was supervisor or coordinator. And then we also are moving the communications coordinator would move from the classified salary schedule to the administrative salary schedule. And we had taken the assistant maintenance supervisor, and we changed that name to facility supervisor. Because of the change to the director of facilities, it made sense to change it to a supervisor instead of being an assistant. I'm just making sure that I covered everything that we changed in that. Okay. Those moves, just so you all know, as we move those positions from one column to the other, they will move, but they may not move from one level directly to the other level. So it may not be just a parallel move. We are going to look at what they were making and make sure they're at least making that much, and then they would get the next step down. Mr. Roberts, did I miss anything? I just wanted to make sure I covered all that. Okay. And then we have, number 10 is our bus driver incentive program. There were no changes to the bus driver incentive program that we put into place last school year. We just wanted to bring it back, approve it again through next school year. If you recall, as we were going through transportation and the tactics, one specific area there was to review the bus driver incentive program and measure it, see how it's doing. So it may be something that we would come back and have another proposal for the board. Number 11 is our student workers, which is our summer technology help. We're asking you to authorize the employment of them for the $12 an hour rate.
I have a question.
Okay.
On the bus driver incentive program?
Yes.
Is there any thing that you've done to measure how well that incentive program is assisting in helping to acquire hire or retain bus drivers?
And that, there really hasn't been a whole lot of time yet to get into that, being that we just started it this year, but that is definitely something that's a part of the plan. So
Yeah.
we will definitely be looking at.
He's
We
monitored.
have Dr.
Yeah,
Brewing.
We chatted.
Oh, well, look at that. I stand corrected.
I can tell you that the incentive program we've had has had two effects with us. I am relatively confident in telling you that we've pulled 2 bus drivers from other districts with this incentive program. And we also have landed probably 3 others who, sort of, if you will, see the light at the end of the tunnel, so they understand if they have to put some money up front, that they know they'll get that bonus to get that training cost back. We pay for most of the training, but they're gonna get a CDL, so they gotta pay for the CDL, so they gotta pay for the test, they gotta pay for the packet that they get initially up front. And those costs are real, and of course, they come away with it with the CDL, but the incentive helps with that.
Thank you.
Mike, did you say 4 then, that we feel confident?
I would say 5 total, 2 drivers that we pulled from other districts, and then 3 others, so I'd say 5.
Thank you.
And Dr. Bruning, just to be clear, that number of 5 drivers, that was a huge number. That mean, we talked about having to make those changes last school year. So 5 drivers makes a huge difference on what you guys can do on the operations
And
side.
it also has ensured that we have gotten children to school on time every day this year.
And that's not something every school district in
No.
Central Ohio can say, so
There are
just to
some
point
that
that out.
neighbor us that have had trouble with that this year. Yep.
Absolutely. So it is making a positive impact.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think the evaluation piece is to say whether the $1,000 sign-on bonus is significant or the 2,000 referral bonus is significant. So I think those are pieces that we need to measure, to see if that is kind of a game changer on recruitment and maintaining the drivers that we have. So I think those are key factors that we'll need to kind of track somehow through the strategic plan.
So we're acquiring them and they're staying because
Yes.
of that.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 12. We have our
Oh, we
food
on
service. Yep.
We're gonna authorize the contract to stay with CWLS for the 23-24 school year and a renewal. They operate off of the CPI price index, so we're looking at a small increase on the management fee and then the administrative fee. Again, they based that on the CPI. I think the CPI was right around 8%, and they're giving us a break at 7%. Would highly recommend Chartwell's, as we always do. I think everyone knows at this point the value that they provide to the district. Meal prices kind of staying in the cafeteria lane. I'd have to validate this, but I don't think, this is my 7th year in the district, I don't think we have increased lunch prices in that 7 years since I've been here. We're recommending an increase for the K-12 of 25 cents for lunches and breakfast. It's kind of a multi-factor reason. This year we're going to lose about $180,000. It would have been more than that had we not got a COVID supply stipend this year for increased cost of goods. We won't receive that next year. Mr. Watson did a forecast. We reviewed it this week. At the end of that 5 years, we would have negative cash. So we want to go ahead and be proactive and make those rate changes now to where we do 25 cents this year and then maybe 10, 10, 10, and 25. So we'll kind of stagger it in. That way we're not jumping the prices up all at once our cash balance is down closer to zero. We do have a little wiggle room in with the cash balance right now, but that will go quickly now that we're already deficit spending. Then the other piece of that is the federal government reimburses us for all free reduced lunches, and they're currently reimbursing at $4.33. So that shows you that we are still under what even the federal government says a lunch should cost. We will continue to evaluate this. I mean, we would have had to change prices 3 years ago, then COVID hit, and we got into the lunch program for 2.5 years, and it helped us even build more of a balance. So we would have had to do this much quicker than what we're doing now. So I guess that's the one positive COVID kind of put on us, is that we were able to build our food service cash balance. I would have probably settled for a negative service balance to do without COVID, but that's kind of where we're at. We're sitting with about $1 million in that fund right now. Like I said, it'll start kind of decreasing by 250 to 350 over the next 2 or 3 years each year. So we'll get into it quickly.
Mr. Rep, I'm sorry. Do we, I know there was a grant in some school districts or in the state to provide summer programs for kids that weren't in school and provide lunches in parks. Do we do anything like that in our school district for the kids that are not in school during the summer, where we provide school lunches or any kind of lunches for the kids that go to specific parks in our communities?
We don't, and I know you've got to do something to specifically qualify for that. Tammy can elaborate more on that.
And the reason why I ask is because you know that when kids eat well and they have healthy diets, they perform better in school. And I'd hate to see, I'd like to see more of those 3 months continue to ensure that our kids are getting great nutrition while they're not in school.
To answer your question, it is all based on your percentage of free and reduced students. So what we do to support that, because we're setting at about a 33% free and reduced rate, we support that by giving all the information on our website. We send home letters to the families, emails, however we can do it, to let them know where those feeding sites are. Now, because we are running a summer school program, we will be able to, so far we know for sure, we can feed our kids in elementary that are going to attend summer school for the month of June. So we're able to do that. We also, I'm pretty good friends with Groveport, so I know where they're going with it and other places. So we'll get that information out to the families to make sure they know where they can take their kids. And that program is for kids 18 and under.
Mm-hmm.
Whole families can go in there and have a nice
Through United Way?
meal. Well, no, this is just through the federal government.
Okay.
So this,
I know United Way is doing one too in the Groveport area.
yeah, it's all about who has the means, and there has to be education with it. Like, there's a whole lot of things that have to happen for you to qualify. I wish we could do it. I've always said that, but right now I feel really lucky we can even do it for our summer school. So we do every chance we get.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Roberts, I just wanted to ask, and I know it may seem like a very small increase to 25 cents, but anytime we're putting a little bit more cost onto the families who don't qualify for their students that have the free lunch or reduced lunch, have you looked at, or are there any other options available to help buffer that increase? And or since the prices haven't increased in the past 7 years, why particularly now are we implementing this or proposing this as opposed to perhaps the 24-25 school year?
Within 3 years, the general fund will be subsidizing the food service program, and I don't think we want to get to that point, because the food service fund is supposed to be self-sufficient and operate as its own fund. So to kind of take advantage, or not take advantage, but to use our time to build up our lunch prices, because if the federal's reimbursing at $4.33 now, by 5 years, they're probably going to be reimbursing up over $5 per meal. So we want to take advantage of time, and that way we're not raising prices $1 3 years from now. So we want to take advantage of all of that opportunity to say, okay, we're going to raise it 25 cents now, maybe 10 cents or 25 cents next year, and that way we kind of do small increments instead of having to adjust it all at once to protect the fund balance in the food service fund.
Yeah, I'm just speaking towards just outright inflation in every aspect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So just wondering about the timing of this.
Yeah, I think Tammy could tell you. I think our cost per meal has probably went up, what, at least 80 cents?
Yeah, about 80 cents for shipping and food supplies, and just the fact that, going to those factories and the people, how are they enforced for all? Even
Yeah, so the cost to one student, if you were to eat lunch every day in a cafeteria, the increase is $44.25 for the entire 177 days that students are in session. So we kind of looked at that. We kind of looked at, like she said, other districts to see what they're charging, looked at the cash balance, looked at what the federal reimbursement rates are, combined with what the current rates were. We still felt that these were very affordable and kind of in line with what our forecast line would be over the next 5 years.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that viewers, our families understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. Any other questions on the food service items? Then we've got cell phone reimbursements. There's board policy that outlines who the board reimburses for the $25. These positions are not in that board policy, so we want to approve these separately to make sure they get reimbursed for using cell phones. Workers' comp program. Yep.
Look at existing plans, like a person has a cell phone, they have unlimited, or is it has something to do with state policy or something? Like, if we're reimbursing $25 per month, that they would have paid it anyway because it's unlimited plan that they already are on. Do they have a separate phone, or is it their personal phone, but we give them $25 towards the use of their personal phone?
Toward their personal phone.
It actually helps us, because if not, we would have to buy everybody their own phone. So this is a way for us not to have to purchase these individuals a phone to use for work. It's a way for us to reimburse them for that.
And do we have any kind of restrictions around access to whatever they use their phone for with regards to work?
Yeah, they have to follow our policies that are, yeah.
If they want the reimbursement?
Well, anybody that, whether they're, if they're using any device, in this case, as they're working, they have to follow through their work. When they're working, using it for work, they have to follow our guidelines.
Okay.
Yeah, so not all the time they wouldn't have to follow our guidelines, but they do have to follow the guidelines when they're using it for work.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
So workers' comp program, staying with comp management. We've been with comp management for at least 10+ years. This provides the benefits and participate in the group program for the state. Our individual premium would be $78,000 outside the group, but we get a group savings because we do actually have a fairly decent track record. They look back at trend and what we've claimed over the last 5 years, and that gets you into a group discount. Group discount's about $12,483. So we're estimated to pay a premium of $65,000 to Bureau of Workers' Compensation for our workers' compensation program. And then we've got private tuition contracts. We've got 5 students at New Story schools, and we've got 5 students at Bridgeway Academy schools for the school year. Those were attached to the administration section of your board agenda, if you want to review those. And then you've got your candidates for graduation. Ms. Hunt?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we are asking you to approve the list of seniors for graduation on May 20th. And that would be as submitted by Principal Amy Warren, providing all local and state criteria standards have been met as presented. And this list does include anybody that had been an early grad that we may have approved earlier this year on the agendas who will be eligible to walk with their graduating class.
Okay.
It's a long consent.
Any additional questions? I just want to apologize. I'm not going to be able to be at graduation this year. I'll be on a family trip, so first time in, 12 years I haven't been at graduation, so hope it all goes well. Good.
We're switching What time do we officially start this year?
We officially start at 6 PM.
6 p.m.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll send out more, like, specific details of what time to show up, where to go.
All right. Mr. Roberts, I need a roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Mrs. Tally?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes. Motion passes 4-0. We are getting there, folks. Just take a deep breath. We're on the home stretch. Let's find out where I am.
Kaya's getting so much done.
Okay, we move on to action items. First action item is the 5-year forecast. So I need I'll make a motion, and I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Butler. Mr. Roberts, any additional information we need to know before we approve the 5-year forecast?
Nope, this file connected here is a much more detailed approach to the forecast by line item. If you have any questions, just send me an email or call me.
Any questions from the board? Nope. Mr. Roberts, call roll.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Tally?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Next action item is employment for administrative personnel for Megan Anthony.
I'll make a motion on action item number 2.
I second it.
Right. So this is, we discussed this in the consent agenda when we were going through the administrative salary schedule changes. So I would like to, present that we move Megan Anthony to the administrator salary schedule as communications coordinator on a 2-year contract, and that would begin then this August.
All right, I saw the resignation in the consent agenda, so you've been unemployed for about 32 minutes. So let's vote her in, please.
She actually wrote it as pending board approval of the administrative
she's
position.
smart. That's
Yeah,
good. I like
on
that.
purpose. Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Congratulations, Ms. Anthony.
Action item number 3, employment for administrative personnel, Dr. Bruning. I'll make a motion.
And I will second.
All right.
Kaya?
Yep, again, with the changes that we're making, we are taking the Director of Operations position, which Dr. Bruning holds currently. We're eliminating that position and then restructuring it to be the Director of Student Services. So Dr. Bruning would then move into that position. So in order to do that, we do need him to be approved as the Director of Student Services.
Any questions? Conversation? Nick?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And action item number 4 is employment administrative personnel, Jacob Ramsey. Need a motion and a second? I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, thank you.
Kaya?
So I'm excited to recommend Mr. Jacob Ramsey as the athletic director for the 23-24 school year. Mr. Jacob Ramsey currently serves as the assistant director of student life at Upper Arlington High School. Mr. Ramsey's experience with cultivating student-centered athletic programs and enthusiasm for supporting student athletes in their academic and athletic journeys made him the top choice for this role. His vision for the future of Canal Winchester athletics aligns with our district mission of empowering all students for success, and we are excited about the future of our programs under his direction. So I would like to
All right.
recommend him for approval.
Questions, conversation? Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Tally?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Mr. Ramsey, I know we mentioned, would you like to address the board at all, or?
You sat here and waited a whole 2 hours.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to come and be a part of this community and serve in this community. Me and my family have recently moved and relocated to the community, so I'm excited about that as well.
Wow. Okay.
I'm extremely hopeful that my oldest daughter, who will be a ninth grader this year, will join us at the high school. So extremely excited. I think I'm coming at an extremely pleasant time, considering that we're rolling out the CW Promise. A lot of my work has been directed towards creating alignment from not only the building level but the district level, and with these plans and these ideas of how we're going to go about serving our community and our students. I think this is a great opportunity for me to use my skill set and involve that in our athletic departments. I look forward to not only serving our high school student athletes and our students, or excuse me, our families, but also our middle schools, our community, any partnerships that I can build in this community that will serve and benefit our students. I'm excited for this great opportunity. So thank you for today.
Excited to have you.
Thank you.
Go Bearcats. Yes.
What?
Action item number 5, administrative transition days. I'll make a motion. Need a second?
I'll second.
All right, with Mr. Ramsey coming, we would like to ask for 10 transition days as he moves into the role this summer.
Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Action item number 6 is the 2023-2024 OHSAA membership resolution. I'll go ahead and motion. Need a second?
Second.
Ms. Talley.
This is our annual resolution where we authorize membership into the Ohio High School Athletic Association for the 23-24 school year.
Nothing changed, nothing wonky with it. Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. Moves us into discussion items. Everybody want to stand up and take a stretch? No? This is power through. First reading for the board policy. Ms. Hunt.
Okay, so it is, obviously we've had a long night, but we have met with the personnel liaisons, which is Mr. Butler and Ms. Talley, and we have worked through the policies, and so we're presenting those after we had talked and made the changes to those policies. So I'm gonna briefly go through these. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll get started. So the first policy, 0131.1, is on technical corrections. This would be a new policy that would allow us to make changes that don't change the policy, but maybe errors in the words, misspellings, or changes in names. So technical corrections such as there may be times in the policy that list, assistant superintendent, that we change that to superintendent now that we don't have an assistant superintendent in the role, or with Dr. Bruning moving from one position to another, if his name was in the policy, we could switch that to student services. So those type of things. Moving on to 2114, this would be meeting state performance indicators. This is in referring to the changes that were made in September of 2021 that changed the state school performance and accountability system by removing the grades of A through F and replacing them with a new 5-star system. So now the report card would be anywhere from 1 to 5 stars, and that would include components such as achievement, progress, gap closing, early literacy, and graduation. 5 being the highest, so of course that's where we want to strive to be. 2271 College Credit Plus program. This was House Bill 554 was passed, and this was specific to allow students of military families to complete any remaining coursework online, or alternatively, withdraw without penalty. So if they can't move that to online, then they would be able to withdraw without having to pay the fee if they are a military family and their families have been moved and replaced. Misplaced, I should say, transferred. 2412 is our homebound instruction program. This policy was revised to reflect the statutory requirements pertaining to the provision of homebound instruction. For example, the basis for providing 5 hours of instruction per week. And that policy change is current with state law. Moving on then to 312009, 412009, and 8120. This is our volunteer policies. We've basically taken and removed the 312009 and the 412009 for volunteers, removed those and deleted them and placed it all into 8120, so a new place. And really with that, there's very few changes. The content mostly remains the same. And there was a change to some that would recognize that volunteers are not considered employees of the district, but rather function more as support. So it also goes into requiring that they have a pupil activity permit to coach and any OHSAA, which is state law. We've been doing that all along. So that just helps us with that. Moving on to 5310, health services. This policy has been updated to reflect current state law pertaining to assessing a student for a concussion or a head injury during a school activity. Next, we have 5460, which is our graduation requirements. This policy we actually already updated to begin because there was a lot of language in there that had the past few years, so we caught that as we were updating policy. And we are finally in a place where we are hopeful, we're gonna knock on wood, that these requirements do start with 2023 and beyond and that they will actually stay. In addition to removing the language of the prior standards, the policy now provides more details that apply to the competency and the readiness requirements, including alternatives to demonstrate competency for students who do not pass the ELA and the algebra test, as well as provides a comprehensive list of state and local seals that are available for students to show readiness for graduation. 5610 is the removal, suspension, expulsion, and permanent exclusion of students. This policy has been revised to reflect specific language in Ohio Revised Code, which requires a school district to offer an opportunity for a hearing before temporarily denying admittance to any pupil who has been suspended or expelled from the schools of another district. We can actually decide to honor that previously imposed suspension or expulsion after the district holds a hearing. And this was one that we did have some discussion in. I wasn't sure if we wanted to have discussion briefly here regarding this. And really the discussion would fall around, in the language, we do say we would allow the student to have a hearing if they're appealing, or as they come forth for appealing an expulsion. And our policy currently states that it would be in front of the board or their designee. I took that, I will tell you, I've only had one expulsion appeal this year and in the years that I'm aware of. And we had that in front of the designee, which is the board's attorney. And there was discussion on whether the board wanted to be a part of that hearing. The board attorney would still sit in on that appeal to make sure that all law is being followed.
Certainly, I feel that just in terms of providing that board governance and something as severe as an expulsion, the board might want to have an interest in that, in those hearings. And I'm interested in wanting to know what my colleagues think about that. I certainly agree that the board designee, which is our attorney, would be present at each hearing, but I was also recommending that perhaps the board be present in the event that the expulsion hearing does happen. And then if so, would we require each board member to be present, or would we require a quorum? So I'm open to discussion regarding that.
Well, I thought it was interesting because and Ms. Tyler brought up a good point, that existing policy gives us the option to sit in, but it also gives us the option to put a designee in there. And then the recommendation was to kind of take out the board and just make it the designee, and I thought Mrs. Tully had a good idea. I thought that we still want to give ourselves the option, so it doesn't require us to be there, but it still allows us that ability, the flexibility in the same way the policy does now, as opposed to removing us. Because if there was an important issue and we wanted to just sit in, and again, that policy's already been in place, so I didn't think that it was necessary to take us out of the equation, but I didn't want to, obviously, we got to have the attorney there, and obviously, there's a reason why they're in the policy as well, so.
And we did clarify that this was specific to an expulsion
Yes.
appeal,
Yes.
not the expulsion hearings.
Yes.
Because I've probably, I don't want to exaggerate by any means, but I probably have sat in on 20-plus expulsion hearings this year.
I don't think this requires us to be there, but it gives us the option, if the board didn't want to be in on the appeal, we had the ability to do that.
Is it an appeal if a student is expelled from another district and they move to our district and do we have to review it?
No.
If they've been expelled?
If they have been expelled there, if they've been expelled from another district, we uphold that expulsion from the other district. So they would not be able to enter our school until that expulsion is done, being served.
So this board policy says what, that we are not included, or that we want to be?
Yeah.
Board doesn't-
So basically, it
Board or
allows it to
designee.
remove it from being in front of the board, is like the designee. So the expulsion of, the way we have revised it is to say you will have a hearing, and we did not include who it was in front of. We decided that, like, after conversations in our policy meeting, it was discussed that if we leave it like that, then we can choose who is in those. So it was just a discussion that we had on whether or not, moving forward, for me to know that, and it can be a case by case. I did say that I would say we might want to be consistent with whatever we decide to do. Because depending on who comes to the table, oh, well, I want to sit on this one because I might know the family, or I might, versus it being, oh, well, I think it needs to be consistent, whatever we choose to do.
Is there any, I'm just asking, is there any thought, typically when someone's accused of something, they get a choice of being heard by the judge or the jury and the jury. Is there any thought process in giving the family a choice of whether they want the hearing in front of the board or just in front of the designee? Or do we
I
dictate
don't know.
that?
That would be your discussion. I would recommend that it be our decision.
Needs to be consistent, whether we say we do or we do not. It's not left up to the family. It would be our policy, so that's consistent across the board, so it's not back and forth.
The reason why I'm asking is, let's just say there's a family and they have some sort of personal conflict with our superintendent, and they don't really want it, or even with our attorney, they just happen to know them, I don't know, they just don't want to have it with them, and they want to hear it, they want it heard in front of the board. Do we want to give them that option, or are we going to tell them it's only this option? I personally don't have a problem with sitting in on hearings. If if that helps you guys. I think as a school board member, I would like to understand more about who's getting expelled and what the reasons are and how those things kind of come up. I really don't know much about it, even if I just sat in quietly and wasn't part of the actual hearing. It's just kind of a learning experience for me, but would it help you guys if we sat in on it, or is it easier for you guys to go through the process without worrying about getting 5 other people together?
Yeah, well, again, I'm just this conversation is just referring to the appeal of an expulsion.
Right.
And so that happens as of now, which I don't think is a bad thing. It doesn't happen often. The expulsion hearings, to try to schedule with me, or if I am not available, Dr. Bruning has taken the lead on many of them this year, which he'll take over in the future with his new position. and the families, and you have to get them scheduled within a period of time, it would be a very tough fill to try to have anybody, like the board sit in on the actual expulsion hearings. It's now nearly impossible to schedule with a 10-day window and to make sure all the parties can be there. The appeal, if it happens infrequently and stays infrequently, that's something that, I don't know. I don't think it makes it easier for me. I think actually, in my opinion, I understand, like, the easiest thing for the district is to have the attorney lead it. In the appeal, I'm not a member of the hearing unless I'm a witness in the hearing.
So let me ask a question for the board members. If you're thinking that we should be in the appeal, do you want to have a say in the appeal? Or you just want to hear the appeal?
If I have to be a part of the appeal, I want to have a say in the appeal. But it doesn't have to be immediate. It could be a written response later, or it could be a vote, or later. It doesn't have to be immediate. Be a discussion after we hear the appeal together. If I'm going to come and be a part of it, I'd like to have a say.
I too would like to have a say, and that kind of speaks to Ms. Barnes' discussion as far as providing an option for that student. If we were to say, or impose policy where it's our attorney and board, I think that provides a little bit more room for transparency and for procedural fairness, so to speak, so that there's dual entities involved in that decision-making, just in case there are personal grievances towards, the attorney or something like that. I'm just looking at, it is, I feel like, a board duties that we have interest in those kinds of proceedings. That's something very significant that would impact that student and their family, and also the school community as well, if that student is permitted back on campus. And I do think that we should have a say.
And for the record, just because when I was in school, there was a difference between expulsion and suspension. Suspension meant you could come back. Expulsion meant you were out of the district, period. You couldn't come back at all. When you said they have to serve their time, is it expulsion's not permanent anymore?
No.
Okay.
So expulsion can be anywhere from 1 to 80 days for most, like, whatever incidents you would need to be expelled for. If it involves a weapon, there's multiple things. I'm going to misquote exactly what it is, but for sure a weapon, threat on, like, a very specific threat that would have been acted out. There's multiple things that can have it extend through a year. A year is the most you can expel somebody from. There might be permanent exclusion if you bring a weapon onto campus. That might be something that you could permanently be expelled for permanently, but yeah, can be anywhere from, and that's after serving their 10-day suspension. So they get a 10-day recommend, which buys us time to schedule the expulsion hearing, and then they're suspended for those 10 days, and then you have the recommended. So the expulsion does not start until day 11.
And I wanted to make sure I put out there, it's important for me, like, I am not a lawyer, and to be honest with you, educational policy, I'm not an expert on every specific issue. So for me, it's really important that if we are having these appeals, that the attorney is leading it. But I definitely, if it rises to that level of importance, I want to be aware of what's going on. But I just want to be clear, like, at the end of the day, we hire a superintendent and we hire lawyers to be able to, our policy experts. So we got to be careful that we're not coming in there trying to create policy at these appeal meetings when, again, we hire professionals to do that. So I wanted to make sure that we put it in there that we have the option, but I just wanted to be very clear that, obviously where our attorneys, our educational professionals are the ones that are going to lead the meeting and definitely facilitate it. And our role is more just kind of to be sort of like a representative, but we're not necessarily leading the meetings. And I just wanted to be clear, like, leaving that in there doesn't necessarily mean that we're gonna go over the lawyers or go around our superintendent or assistant superintendent, because obviously those are people where we hire to run our school district from day to day. So I just wanted to make that clear. So that was just my little 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Butler. I don't know the law, and if a student gets to the point of expulsion, he or she may have done something drastically enough to achieve that level. And at that point, if they want to try to have me weigh on their side to go against the situation and the lawyer and the district and the policy, I don't care to be in that position, personally. So, what we could do is continue the conversation, because this is the first reading. We have time to discuss amongst each other, and we'll have to fill Dave in, what his thoughts are as well. So if you guys are okay to move forward, we'll just
That's
continue
fine.
the discussion before the next board meeting.
Yep.
And do we have to approve this at the next board meeting, at the second one, or
No.
can we take
We
that
can
one
table
out
that one
and then
out.
have
Yep.
further? Okay,
Yep,
thank you,
100%.
that makes sense.
It does not have to be approved at
Okay.
the next meeting. Yep. And one other thing, just to piggyback
Yeah,
on,
fine.
the request of just knowing what individuals are being expelled for, that is something that I can prepare for you monthly to say, I won't give names obviously, but here's what the student was expelled for, here's what they did, and here was the number of days that we expelled them for, so that you have the information for that. Can definitely make that part of a monthly update. Okay, moving on then to 6325, procurement, federal grants and funds. This is one that we had made a change to earlier, and a minor adjustment had been recommended for the change because it was very specific that all grants had to follow rules. However, there are some that do not follow the Davis-Bacon Act, which would not have to apply to those requirements. So the changes would then reflect that there are some instances in which the Davis-Bacon Act does not apply, and the change made to policy 6325 clarifies that. $83.90 is animals on district property. This policy has been revised, wanting to provide some information regarding therapy and comfort animals. We are continuing with the stance that obviously, the service animals who are trained for a specific person to help that specific person with whatever their disability or need may be, we would continue to allow, which is ADA required, so not really a choice. And at this point, we would not move forward with the service animals or the therapy comfort animals. 8400, school safety. This policy has been updated to reflect current state law. The document reflects changes enacted by House Bill 123, which was adopted in 21 and comes into full effect and enforcement in 23, including the requirement for district to have trained threat assessment team in place in each school building that serves students in grades 6 through 12. We do have trained teams in our buildings, so we do meet those requirements. We just needed to revise the policy. 8420, emergency situations at school. This policy has been updated to reflect current state law, including language from Ohio Administrative Code, which pertains to school safety. It's updated, let's see here. So this is updated to reflect the current state law regarding safety practices. And 8462 is our student abuse and neglect. This policy has been revised to include provisions of Senate Bill 288, which was passed during the lame duck legislative session. The bill was signed by the governor on January 3rd of 2023 and requires school districts to include age-appropriate training to K-12 students on child sex abuse prevention. And it goes on to say that we must also provide training to staff regarding sex abuse that is presented by either a prosecutor or a law enforcement officer. These revisions reflect current state law. However, we have not yet selected the curriculum or decided how we are going to roll this out to our our students. We are waiting for the state to release curriculum, and at that point, we will reconvene and discuss what that looks like for our district. All right, moving on then to 75, okay. So these next groups of policy that you see up on the screen, these are all around the technology update for January 2023. We had several technology updates several years ago, and these again are just further updates. 7540, 754001, and 754002 is updated to reflect best practices and the evolving state of the law related to website accessibility based on the American Disabilities Act. And 754003, 754004, 8300, 8305, 8315, and 9701 has been updated to incorporate optional language pertaining to advertising that is posted, published on the district's website. Basically, in a nutshell, in the past, we have always been responsible for the advertising, and it specifically said superintendent. However, now there's wording that says that if that's just not possible, then the expectation is on the business, and we need to ensure that that's in the contract. And last but certainly not least, wrapping it up, is our board policies on tobacco. Again, these came from Neola. There are changes here to update regarding the Ohio Department of Health's tobacco use prevention and cessation program for the initiative. And we have moved to being a 100% tobacco-free school campus. So those policies are updated to reflect that. And last, I already said this, but then our district requests, we have 8640 and 8660, which is the transportation for field trips and other district-sponsored trips, as well as incidental transportation of students by private vehicles. These revisions were made to update the policy to address transportation shortages for field trips and other school-sponsored trips. So basically what we have found is that we know we're tight on bus drivers and transportation. With our 4-tier system, what that has done is minimize the number of field trips we can take. So this will allow us some flexibility in both school field trips for our students to still maybe get to where they need to go, like OMUN trips, with either parents driving and then permissions given by the other parents for the student to ride with that parent. Or again, then for sports activities, there may be a time where we would allow a parent to sign off that the student is able to drive. So these policies allow us to have more flexibility to get kids where they need to go. Any questions?
No, thank you very much for going through that. And again, this is the first reading, so we'll look at these to approve next month with some discussion, obviously, around the expulsion situation. So, no need for executive session.
Correct.
I do want to thank JP and Heather and staff for putting all of this new technology together. Obviously, you see we're still working through some things, some hot mics, some display screens, but I appreciate all the effort that's gone into this room, and it's really kind of, again, what Megan and Kai have been talking about is branding our district and getting, I guess, a different look and a different feel, and I think we've established that with this room, so I appreciate all their help and efforts in putting this together. So, any other comments from the board before we adjourn?
I did want to mention that I am happy to learn that the district will start looking into renovating Oli Speaks Performing Arts. So that's underway. And I believe the architect's going to be coming out beginning of the summer, I think. Okay.
Yep. So, gonna come out, gonna do a walkthrough of what we think we need. They'll put together some plans, some rough sketches, and then some costs associated with that. we'll have some options, and we'll bring it to the board to discuss. So
Awesome.
definitely involve new seating, probably painting, looking at the flooring, lighting, sound system. We're gonna try to look to do something with the entrance, with branding and things like that, to where it actually looks like a theater when you walk in and people know exactly where they're going. So excited to get into it and see what they can come up with.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really gonna tap into the student engagement piece.
Absolutely.
Yep, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Talley, Mr. Roberts.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for your attendance